Breaking news in the NFL as A.J. Brown has been traded to the New England Patriots for a 2028 first-round pick and a 2027 fifth-round pick. I'm going to explain why this trade works for both parties. Jacob Hebert here on NFL World. Let's start in New England. Number one, you get a great wide receiver. He's the clear-cut number one guy. You don't have to worry about that anymore. So that's going to help out your young quarterback and your other wide receivers because that defense, it has to dictate to what that player is doing. So you have to go double cover him. You have to shadow coverage over there. It helps those guys out. That's number one. Number two, how will they get on the ball? Well, this isn't a question. This is more of a how much are they going to get on the ball? And when are they going to get on the ball? Because the Josh McDaniels system, and we'll talk about it, has always had these players involved in some way. Welker, Edelman, Gronk, Moss, Ocho Cinco, for a very, very brief period. That was more O'Brien tenure, but so now you're bringing in A.J. Brown. What that brings is it's going to allow him to run routes in a way that will help the young quarterback. Because you can throw the 50-50 ball, and he can outrun you. Also, he can do both those things. You just get that ball high enough, he can catch the 50-50 ball. He can outrun you deep. He's great in the red zone. It allows you to have such a great advantage as an offense because we have to stop him. We got to put our number one guy, our number one defensive back on him and hope he doesn't beat him over and over again. That's what you have to hope for. That's what you're worried about all the time. And in the case of A.J. Brown, what he brings, big, physical, fast, tough. He's not a body catcher. He's a good hand catcher. He's got good footwork. He'll help a young quarterback out. That's what you want. It's going to be interesting to see the dynamic of a reunion between him and Mike Vrabel due to the fact that we're both in Tennessee at the same time. And I know Mike Vrabel's had his fair share of problems we haven't gotten into on our channel for good reason. I felt like it was already overdone as it was. I didn't want to necessarily pile onto it. But if we get to an actual point of, okay, here's all the information, I can condense it into a video, I will. At some point. Won't be in it right now, but at some point I will. But it's going to be a really interesting conversation that A.J. Brown and Vrabel, they have a relationship. We can talk about if it was a good relationship or not, but they had a relationship. So you always look for players like that. You always look for coaches that have relationships with a player, especially when you're talking about trades. But the biggest concern is, when those two guys were together, A.J. Brown wasn't at his peak form. That only happened when he went to Philadelphia. So how is that going to work? And then there's another issue, which is when A.J. Brown goes here, how are you going to go and tell him, okay, that the way you acted in Philadelphia, the way you acted in Tennessee, that stops as soon as you walk through that door. I'm sure they had conversations about it. And I'm sure after they made this trade, they called him and said, hey, we made this trade. Don't F it up. And don't do that. You're here as a leader. Lead these people. Don't go and say, well, I didn't get the ball in. Can't happen. Not here. And also, it was very little risk for the trade package. A 2028 first and a 2027 fifth for a number one wide receiver, still very young. You'll take that. You really will. Now let's go to Philadelphia. You made this trade for a couple of reasons. One, you get the headache out of there. You get the headache out. Because you said, I can't do this anymore. This felt like we were going in a circle over and over and over again. It was like a very bad marriage that never ended until it did. And then you're like, thank God it did. Or thank God this relationship ended. Because it was bad. We've all had those relationships of it was just a toxic relationship for no reason. And it felt like they kept going to like marriage counseling over and over and over again. Every year. It was the same thing. We'd get halfway through the year, AJ would be upset, they'd have a meeting, and they'd be fine the rest of the year. And then we get into the next year, it's the same thing. Same thing. But it kept getting worse. As in, it would be this, we have a meeting, it got better, but then we went back the next year, and eventually you had to go talk to the owner, Jeffrey Loy, about it. Jeffrey Loy had to have a conversation with you. That conversation with Jeffrey Loy happened in the Super Bowl season, the year they won the Super Bowl. That's what happened. That was such a bad locker room that won a Super Bowl because it was insane. At one point, there was a conversation that had happened that they didn't want us to know happened. Like AJ Brown said, we had a meeting. Me, Saquon, Jalen. Me, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, Kellen Moore, Nick Sirianni, and those other guys were trying to say, nope, we did not have that conversation. Nope, we did not have that conversation. They kept trying to say, nope, AJ, be quiet, we're good. We don't want to admit it exists. But they had to. They had to do that because it was ridiculous. It was a weekly occurrence and a yearly occurrence every time. And eventually, it just had to end. And then you go into the draft, you select Mekhi Lemon, and you said, this is our opportunity. Let's get rid of him. We have to wait till after June 1st. Who's interested? New England's interested? Okay. But we got to wait till after June 1st. So that's what they did. But it was a mess. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. The entire time it was a nightmare. And that's the point of that I'm trying to make here. It was a nightmare to begin with. So it was just, you got rid of the headache. That's good. You also got a 2028 first round pick. So now you have 2 first round picks in that draft. So you can trade for a guy if you need it, or you can have 2 first round picks in 2028 and you can increase and build your team that way too. And it helps. It also takes that off your books for the time being. You'll still have a lot of dead cap, but it will take it off your books for the time being. Which you'll actively take that off your books anytime you can. The only negative in the case of the Eagles is you lose a number 1 wide receiver. You had a number 1 in Devontae Smith. You brought in A.J. Brown, so you had a 1A and 1B. Now you lost that guy who was the 1A or the 1B or whomever. It doesn't benefit anyone if that's the case. You're hoping Mekhi Lemon can be that guy. You're hoping that Lemon can be that guy for you. But you don't know. You don't know. You're hoping. And you're hoping Devontae Smith can step up. You think he can. I think he can. But it's going to be a tough ask. He's been really good. So we'll have to wait and see. I will say this in the case of A.J. Brown. You can't have those tantrums, but you also can't go on Twitch, complain, and then go into a game and not play well. You can't do that. You can't. And I get it. There's games and you can blame the amount of systems he's been in. I get it. But you can't go on Twitch, say, I need the ball more, and then the team get you the ball more and you don't make plays. You drop too many passes, or you dropped passes. You didn't get open. You didn't get as many yards on the play as you did. Or even last year where he had 3 100-yard games in a row and they lost all those games because it didn't fit the offense. See, that's what most of this happened. AJ wanted the ball more, but the offense was a run-first offense. It's kind of hard to change that in a season. And then when you're not producing, or you are producing, but it's not resulting in winning games, the team's looking at you like, we were at least winning games when we were doing the opposite, when we were playing the opposite way. We changed for you, and we're not winning anymore. Now we got to try to change back and hope we can still win. It's too much of a mess, if you think that way. You can't talk. If you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk, as the old saying goes. And AJ, if you're going to talk the talk, you better walk the walk. Let me know in the comments how would you grade this trade? To me, it's an A for both teams. But let me know in the comments, what are your grades for the AJ Brown trade? For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hebert. Out.